Alright guys, so today we're going to take a look at how to do this kind of cool pixel dispersion effect. Make something like this. I added on this little twirl here just to make it look like I was getting sucked into a vortex or something, just to have some kind of cool effect to it. This looks kind of cheesy, but I took my picture on just a plain gray background, and so it didn't have anything that I could twirl and kind of make this effect, so I just kind of added this little thing in here. But the main thing that we want to look at is how to do this, how to make it look like the pixels are dispersing off towards some point. So that's what we want to take a look at today, what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and try and do this. So I'm actually going to get rid of this one. And so here we go. So we're going to open up, go to File, Open. I'm going to go open up my picture that I took initially. So I'm going to start with this. Now this one, it's not hard to do, but you're going to definitely have to follow. And we're going to have a number of different layers going on here. And each layer is going to have kind of a little something different going on with it. So really keep track of what layer you're on over here. That's going to be the main thing that you're going to need to do. So we're going to start off, we've got our background layer, and go ahead and do a two-finger click on it and hit duplicate layer, and we'll say OK there, and then we'll do it one more time and hit duplicate layer again. So now we have 3 layers. On this middle layer, go ahead and click on that, and what we want to do with the middle layer, we want to actually come over to our lasso tool, and it can be the regular lasso, and actually probably will work better if it's the regular lasso tool. And the first thing that we want to do, we actually want to just draw just a real rough lasso around our picture of ourselves, and doesn't need to be very exact. And around the edges we can kind of just go around the bottom. We're going to come back to that and connect it. We got our marching ants going around there. And what we want to do is then we're going to come up to Edit and hit Edit, Fill. And we want to use the Content Aware tool. If you've been keeping track with or pace with all the other Photoshop tutorials, you know we just talked about the Content Aware tool. So when we do the Content Aware, it's going to try to fill in this background with, or fill in the selected area with the background. So if I come over here and I hide this layer, you'll see that I did a pretty good job. It took me out of the picture, which is for this layer is what I want. I'm going to go up and hit select and deselect to get rid of my marching ants there. And you'll see why that's going to be important in a minute, but we want to make sure that we have a layer that has nothing in it, basically just has the background. So whatever your background is, you've gotten rid of yourself and just have a picture of just the background. Okay, so we can add ourselves back in there. Now on this next one, again, I want to make sure I have my top layer selected here. So as you see so far, I've got my normal background layer. I then have my background, my next layer that is just the background. I took myself out of it, and now I'm back on the top layer again. And on this layer, what I want to do now is I actually want to go around and make a copy of myself, just myself. So I'm going to actually take the background out. So kind of doing the opposite in this case. There's a few tools that we could use for this. In my case, because I have a fairly common background, I think it might be easier for me to do the quick selection tool. And so as I do this, I'm going to go around again, just making sure that up at the top here I have the quick selection and then the add to selection button chosen. And I'm going to go around and just kind of select all of me here. And did a pretty good job around my face and everything. I picked up a couple areas here where I don't necessarily want those to show up. So I'm going to actually come up and I'm going to choose this minus or subtract from selection button. And then come in there and I can get rid of these kind of areas here. And get rid of this one. And so now I should basically only have myself selected there. So that's a good tool to use if you have a pretty common background. If you don't necessarily have a common background, you could use the magnetic lasso or the regular lasso and just draw around yourself. But basically we want to just go around us, and then once we have that, we're going to do a 2-finger click and hit layer via copy. You'll see then if I hide these that I now have a layer that is just me, and it took the background out of it. And I'm actually going to do another duplicate layer of this one then as well, so that I now have basically 5 layers here. On this layer, after I have just myself here, I'm going to go back, I'm going to choose this layer. Now it's the second from the top. And on this layer, I'm going to add a layer mask to it. So it's this button here, and it's the kind of looks like a square with a circle inside it. It gives me this. We've used layer mask before. Again, if you've been following along throughout the tutorials, when we made our animals, we used the layer mask. In this case, though, what I want to do is actually I want to hit Command and I, and I'm going to use the inverse of this so that this layer mask is now black. And then I'm going to go up to my top layer, and I'm going to add another layer mask again hitting this button on the bottom, this square with a circle in it, and it gives me this white layer mask over top of it. Now what this is going to do, I'm going to use this in kind of 2 ways. On the one that has the black, I'm going to come back to this one actually, and I'm going to come up to my filter. I'm going to liquefy myself here, and if I want to kind of make myself look like I'm moving towards that vortex or something that's forming there, then I can kind of push myself towards that area and maybe kind of do something like that. So it looks like I'm getting sucked in towards this spot up here. Notice I used a really nice big brush, in this case size 353, but just a nice big one just to kind of push myself up. I don't necessarily want to have like streaks through myself, I just want to push myself over. So again, you won't necessarily see it. Maybe we should have done my liquefy first. You can kind of see it here before I added my layer mask on, but that's okay in this case. Now, one thing I can also do once I have these, I'm actually going to show my background here. So that's why we wanted to make a layer that had just background in it. So now I can bring it back in, and in a minute you'll see why that's going to be something that's going to be useful. So what I want to do, I want to click on my layer mask, this black layer mask here, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to go find a brush, and I'm going to click on my brush presets here button and brush presets, and I chose a brush that's kind of has something kind of like this. It's kind of a splatter or spattered brush. In this case it says spatter 59. I actually then came up and I bumped it up to about 174 pixels just to make it kind of nice and big, and you can kind of see as I come up it has a lot of just good chunkiness to it, and you'll see why that's going to be helpful right now. So as we do this, notice I'm on my layer mask here. I just have to make sure that over here on the side that I'm going to be painting with white. So I can hit X or I could hit this switch button, and what's going to happen then is as I click, it's going to begin to reveal the layer that was behind So this one might even be a little too thick because it's I might have made a spatter too thick, but you can see that this layer, which was the liquefied version of myself here, is now being revealed through that. If I come up to this layer now, on the white one that has this layer mask on it, and again I switch my colors over here, so I'm painting with black, kind of click on myself. What I'm going to do on this one now is I'm actually going to hide this layer so that it looks like I'm kind of taking parts of myself off here, and then they're kind of coming through on the other layer. And actually I want to come back here onto this layer. I'm gonna keep it on black because I want to actually just kind of take it a little bit off, make it so it's not so doesn't come through so much. There we go, and something like that. So basically, what we are doing then is we are on this layer that has the black layer mask. When we paint with the white brush, we're revealing this layer that's behind it. We're allowing it to come through. So the black layer mask actually covers up this picture, this layer, this liquefied version of myself. And then as we paint the white over it, it allows what's behind it to come through it. On this one, this layer mask works in the opposite way then. So the white allows it all to come through, and then the black, when we paint with the black brush, that actually covers those sections of it so it doesn't show that, and then it actually shows just what's in the background, which is again why I wanted to have that common background, and I took myself out of there. Otherwise I would just show up again through there and we wouldn't see any difference. So that's pretty good, and that is a pixel dispersion. And maybe, you know, I maybe could have used a brush that wasn't so thick, but you get the idea. If you want to add in that kind of filter, we can do the filter and then a distort and then a twirl. The only thing that you'll have to do with this is the twirl typically will only go right in the center. So if you want to do a twirl kind of in this specific area, like if I was kind of envisioning having a twirl or something here, and this is why I'm getting sucked into some vortex that's forming here, I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool, create just a selection here, and now I can come up to my filter, hit distort, twirl, and oops, better make sure I'm on the right layer first. So there we go. That's a key point again. Remember that to always know which layer you're working with. Right, so I'm on this layer. Now I'm going to come up, hit filter, distort, twirl, and I can, as I kind of back out, I can see it's adding this kind of twirl effect up here. I can kind of change how much of a twirl I get. You know, if I want it to be really twirly, I can kind of do that, and oh, it actually worked out okay. So I can add that twirl in there, and maybe I'm getting sucked into this vortex that's forming right there. So there you go. Kind of a fun thing to try. See if you can pixelate yourself and kind of have this pixel dispersion effect going on, and just have some fun with it. All right, good luck.